Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Today we're getting to part 2 of Let's Build This, our little KATO themed diorama. Now if you haven't seen the first part, I'll leave the link below, or it's the video right before this one. Now that clip I just showed is where we left off last time. Now the more I looked at the diorama, more and probably too much more, I realized I wanted, well, more dramatic rock angles. A big reason I've been making these rock carving videos over the past month or so is to improve my own rock carving skills, of course, but it's also to show others that rock carving really is satisfying. Creating something fun and, at the risk of sounding a little pretentious, maybe artistic, from wall insulation. I really like that. After more carving with both the larger box cutter knife and the smaller craft knife, gave it another coat of paint, and I'm fairly satisfied with where we are, although I ended up going back and doing some more carving, but we've got a basic shape going now that I kind of like. In addition to adding lights in the house, I also wanted outdoor street lights, so I went through some older Z-scale products I'd produced and used the stick-on LEDs and also some nano LEDs. Tricky little buggers to work with. For the street lights, I went with some single and double-headed lights I had here. They've got sort of a Victorian-era globe look to them, and I thought they'd add more of a fun, whimsical feel to this piece. I drilled a hole through the entire piece and carved out a small space in the bottom of the diorama just to hold all the wiring. I set up a small breadboard with resistors and taped a couple of lights to the rocks to get a feel for how they'd look in place. Also shown here is a perf board that'll take the place of the breadboard, lots of boards here, and get mounted in the base later on. To add a bit more life to our 3D printed house, I decided to add 3 porch lights. A pin vise was used to drill these little holes. Also, since this printed house has such nice porch railings, I thought these lights might give me some kind of nice extra shadows. Here you can really see the size of these LEDs. And once you get the hang of them, they're not that bad to work with. I might make another video showing how to solder these up. Since we're going to have interior lighting, I absolutely wanted windows. Now I was going to go with just a straight sheet of clear acetate, but I really like this product. It's called Microcrystal Clear. It's kind of like PVA glue. All you do is draw the glue across the opening, and once it dries, it forms a window. This material's a bit messy to apply, or maybe I'm a bit messy. In any case, I like these windows as they can end up with just a bit of a wave to them, like old windows can look. Another name for this is restoration glass. Maybe it's the formulation, maybe it's the small window size, but this microcrystal clear doesn't sag too much. Actually, just enough to give the windows that old look that I really like. This microcrystal clear does dry quickly, but one thing that can happen is that bubbles can be formed. Now they're not always visible during application. The result can be small circles in the glass, but I can live with this. It adds a bit of character. Now here's another look at the porch light. Again, pretty small. Each LED gets its own resistor. Luckily, I buy in bulk. I always wire LEDs in parallel instead of in series. You know, that might make for another good separate video. Breadboards, perf boards, and resistors. In the background here, you can see one of the other products we made. That is these resistor wires. They're designed to fit into a Rokahan accessory board on one side and take the 2 wires from an LED on the other side. This eliminated the need for soldering, as a lot of people don't like soldering. They're very handy little wires, but we'll actually be soldering the resistors to the perf board here. These are 1-inch square perf boards. They tend to arrive in larger scored pieces, and they snap apart easily. They're remarkably handy little items. But for this project, I left 2 of the squares unseparated. I've attached 10 resistors here, and this will make my wiring a bit tidier. I thought I'd sketch out the LED placement and wiring here. I gotta be honest, it's for a little bit of a giggle, but I think of this diorama as having 2 levels. On the top level, we've got the house. Now the house is going to have 2 stick-on LEDs on the interior of the roof, as well as the 3 porch lights. And also on this top level, a pair of the single head street lights. On the lower level, I'll have 2 of the double-headed streetlights, and as kind of a last-minute thought, I wired in 2 of the nano LEDs under the rock ledges. I thought that'd be nice for a little bit of accent lighting. If you haven't used LED lighting in your projects yet, I would suggest start small, with maybe 1 or 2 lights. Lighting really does bring scenes to life, but I'm always a fan of starting small to get a feel for things, and not just with lighting either. Too many projects start off with big plans, and it's easy to get overwhelmed, frustrated. Just look at this wiring. Holy moly, that's a mess. Okay, so I can see being a draftsman is not in the cards for me. And as you can also see, these tiny wires can look like a bowl of noodles in a hurry. And this is when working deliberately, really taking your time pays off. Some of the smaller LEDs here use what I believe is enamel-coated magnet wire, and of course the shrink tubing is really tiny as well, around 0.6 millimeter. Now these wire joins are soldered and then the shrink tube applied. I use a small heat gun for this. Now some people use a lighter for shrink tubing, but I feel the small heat guns give more even results. And again, the slower you go here, the better. Now here I'm showing a 5mm, kind of a conventional LED compared to one of the tiny LEDs I'm using for the porch lights. Now I know it looks ridiculous, but you actually can see the solder pads on these, and once you get the hang of it, wiring these is not that difficult. Trying to simply glue the streetlights to the foam wouldn't have worked here, as the foam is too soft and the streetlights would have far too much give, so you'd never get them really permanently fixed. So I mounted the streetlights onto scrap styrene, then cut matching keys into the foam, then glued the matching keys to the foam with epoxy. These lamps are now absolutely rock solid. I then cut grooves into the foam, and this way I could lay the wires in, cover it with epoxy, and then I ran the wires through the hole that I drilled earlier, and all of a sudden that bowl of noodles, all that wiring, we've kind of got it under control here. And of course it'd be nice to test everything. And there we go. Well, at least our street lights and the 2 lights that I put under the ledge, everything's working, so we're in good shape right now. Before I permanently attached the house to the top of the diorama, I wanted to get the base resolved. I bought some wood veneer, really thin, paper thin wood veneer, and while it looks good, I had my doubts on how well it would work, so I instead went with some very, very small slate chips, I think it's slate, that I bought years ago. I tested a bit of this on foam with some Mod Podge, and it really held up well. It actually kind of looks like a Chipwich ice cream sandwich. I think I can work with this. After gluing these slate chips to the base, I then used a very fine soil that I've collected. That's another thing, I always keep a couple of containers in the car. If I see soil or come across soil I think I can use, I always grab some. Anyway, I used the soil for kind of a mortar look. I then glued the house into place, and I used the same bit of the soil applied in a few areas around the diorama just for some visual continuity. I did test the lights before gluing the house in place, and again, we're in good shape here. Victorian era lights may be a bit of a stretch on this rocky outcrop, but I'm having fun with this design, and it's more practice from my rock carving in foam, so a win-win really. I did want to add small amounts of water to the scene, something between standing water and tiny streams, and really I did this so it would catch some of the reflections from the LED. I thought that'd look nice. So I decided to go just with several coats of liquid gloss medium. I looked at where water might naturally fall and tried to model that. Oh, and I also added some color to the foam rocks using weathering powders. Like the rock work itself, I still need work on my rock coloring, but I think this works for now. And here's the reveal, a bit of low ground cover and a bit of water added. After several coats of the liquid gloss medium, I went light and added some very subdued ground cover. Subdued in both the color and the amount. I was going to add a tree or 2 or 3, but I wanted to keep this piece kind of focused on the foam carving itself as well as the overall design. The lighting works, which I'm thrilled about. Our wiring is nice and tidy, and I think for a small 6-inch diameter diorama, this is a fun little piece. More and more I find myself interested in this kind of a basic project. Small pieces like this are a great way to try out new techniques or improve your existing skills, whatever they may be. For me, it's been rock carving in foam, and I think I'm getting a little better with each project. The idea of getting people involved in a great hobby like trains or building scenery is kind of a big deal to me. I get a real kick out of creating a nice diorama from a bit of pink XPS foam and a utility knife. Well, it's that time again, the end of the video. I really hope you've enjoyed this one and would really appreciate it if you could give the video a like and subscribe to our channel. We've got lots more in the works here at RailDig and would like you to be a part of it. I know that sounds corny, but we would. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next video.